Have you ever stood near a giant, roaring waterfall and felt the ground tremble? It's like the whole world is shaking, right? Well, imagine that happening all the time, for hundreds of years, right next to one of the most famous waterfalls in the world, Niagara Falls. But what if I told you the ground around Niagara isn't just trembling? It's actually cracking, splitting, and moving in a way that has scientists and engineers scratching their heads. Today we're going on an adventure to uncover the untold truth behind Niagara's cracking ground. It's a story of incredible power, hidden geology, and some seriously clever detective work. So grab your explorer's hat because things are about to get rocky. First, let's picture Niagara Falls. It's not just one waterfall, but three. You have the Horseshoe Falls, the American Falls, and the Bridal Veil Falls. Together, they send an amount of water plunging down every single second that could fill over 100 swimming pools. That's an unbelievable amount of power. All that water crashes down with immense force, carving away at the rock below. This carving process is called erosion, and it's the main reason Niagara Falls even exists. For thousands of years, the falls have been slowly moving backward, like a giant saw cutting through a log. But that's only part of our story. While the falls themselves are moving, something else is happening right next to them, on the land where people build hotels and parks. The ground itself is shifting. For years, people noticed something strange happening on the American side of the falls. Roads would get mysterious bumps, buildings would develop tiny cracks in their walls, and sidewalks would slowly tilt. It wasn't dramatic like an earthquake, but it was constant, a slow, creeping movement that couldn't be ignored. Imagine you built a perfect Lego tower on a rug, and every day someone gently tugged on that rug just a tiny bit. Over time, your tower would start to lean, and maybe even fall apart. That's what was happening to the ground near Niagara Falls. Engineers were worried. You can't have a major tourist destination where the ground is slowly sliding towards a giant cliff. They needed to figure out what was going on, and fast. So, teams of geologists, who are like detectives for the Earth, started investigating. Their first clue was the rock itself. The area around Niagara is made of layers of rock, stacked like a giant pancake. The top layer is a hard, strong rock called dolostone. It's tough and can handle a lot of pressure. But underneath it is a much softer, weaker layer of rock called shale. Think of it like a cookie with a hard chocolate top and a soft, crumbly base. What do you think happens when you put a lot of weight on that cookie? The soft base crumbles, right? That's exactly what's happening at Niagara. The powerful river has been eroding the soft shale layer from underneath the hard dolostone caprock for centuries. This creates an overhang, like a natural diving board. But the story gets even more interesting. The geologists realized it wasn't just the river's erosion causing the problem. Something else was weakening the shale. They took samples of the rock and discovered that the shale was actually swelling up. But why? The answer was water. Water from rain, snowmelt, and even tiny streams was seeping down through cracks in the hard dolostone and getting into the soft shale layer below. When this type of shale gets wet, it acts like a super sponge, expanding and getting weaker. It loses its strength and starts to behave less like a solid rock and more like thick, gooey mud. This swelling process is called slaking. Now picture this again. You have a massive, heavy layer of hard rock sitting on top of a layer of soft rock that is slowly turning to mush because it's getting wet. The weight of the top layer, along with all the buildings and roads on it, is constantly pushing down. As the shale swells and weakens, it can't support that weight anymore. So the ground begins to slowly, almost invisibly, slump and slide downhill towards the river gorge. It's not a sudden landslide, but a slow-motion creep. Geologists found huge blocks of rock, some as big as a house, that had broken off the main cliff and were slowly sliding down. They were moving at a rate of only a few centimeters a year, but over decades that adds up to a huge problem. This discovery was a game-changer. It wasn't just about the river carving the rock from the front, it was also about water weakening it from within. It was a 1-2 punch from Mother Nature. The cracking ground was the surface evidence of this massive, slow-motion slide happening deep underground. The geologists were like doctors who finally diagnosed a patient's mysterious illness. Now that they knew the cause, swelling shale, they could start thinking about a cure. But how do you stop an entire hillside from moving? You can't just tell the rain to stop falling or the rock to stop being soft. The engineers came up with a brilliant plan. If the problem was water getting into the shale, then they needed to stop the water. They decided to build a huge underground plumbing system. They drilled a series of long tunnels called drainage galleries deep into the rock behind the cliff face. These tunnels were designed to act like gutters. They would catch the water that was seeping down before it could reach the weak shale layer. The tunnels would then channel all that captured water safely away and dump it into the river. It was like putting a giant umbrella inside the rock to keep the shale dry. But that's not all. To make the ground even more stable, they also installed hundreds of what are called rock bolts or tendons. Imagine you have a stack of books that's about to fall over. What could you do? You could drill a hole through the stack and put a long metal rod all the way through, with a nut on each end to hold them tightly together. That's basically what a rock bolt is. Engineers drilled long holes from the surface all the way through the heavy dolostone and deep into the more stable rock below. Then, they inserted super strong steel cables, anchored them at the bottom, and pulled them incredibly tight from the top. This essentially bolted the unstable layers of rock to the solid, stable rock deep underground, preventing them from sliding. This massive project was an incredible feat of engineering. Much of this work is completely invisible to the millions of tourists who visit every year. You can walk around the parks and look at the falls, and you would have no idea that right beneath your feet is a complex network of tunnels and steel cables holding the entire landscape together. The cracking ground hasn't completely stopped. Nature is always at work, but it has slowed down dramatically. Engineers constantly monitor the area with sensitive instruments that can detect even the slightest movement, ensuring everything stays safe. So, the next time you see a picture of Niagara Falls, or maybe even visit one day, look beyond the magnificent curtain of water. Think about the hidden world beneath the surface. Think about the soft, swelling shale, the clever geologists who solved the mystery, and the amazing engineers who built an underground defense system to protect it. The story of Niagara's cracking ground is a powerful reminder that our planet is constantly changing, sometimes in ways we can't even see. It shows us how incredibly powerful nature is, but also how clever and innovative people can be when we work together to understand and protect our world. It's a hidden truth, a geological detective story written in the very rocks of the earth. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey deep into the ground at Niagara Falls. Isn't it amazing what's happening right under our feet? If you enjoyed this adventure and want to uncover more of our world's hidden secrets, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next exploration. See you next time.